Yay!
Good morning, everyone. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Avignoni.
bringing you this week's Ascended World podcast. And we are doing this live stream as well on Facebook. So, good morning. I would say, why don't you start right where you like what you said right before we got on, because it's a good place to start, I think.
Okay, so death is the motivation for everything we do. So, it's the reason we have kids to prolong our, pro, take a piece of us and send it into the future, that kind of thing. It's why we do things. So, being, the act of just being, deals directly with our fear of death. So, you take away all the doing, and
Right.
all that's left is the being, which there's death right because there's a piece of us that believes that's if you're not doing, you're dying.
Right. That's true. Well, and if we think that that everything we do is to stay alive, when we stop doing, then we feel like we're dead, right?
Right, right.
Which, it's truly, and Heather said, good morning. Good morning, Heather. Um, yeah, it's, it's been interesting. Let's talk about a little bit what we talked about at the share on Friday night and what you and I talked about. God, it's like every day is a year right now.
I know,
So
and I was trying to remember that this morning when I first woke up, and I mean, it's just gone.
I was meditating on it. When I was in meditation this morning, it sort of came back to me. It had to do with that. Um, we were talking about that expectation thing, right? How expectations are one of the things that keep us anchored into timelines, like in a way that is not necessarily um, empowering, right?
Right,
So, and if we're talking a lot. We had a lot of situations come up last week having to do with expectations, and expectations are totally based in the ego, because the ego like feels like you're in lack, right? So then
right,
you have to get something to fill that lack, and that's the expectation of, well, if I do this, then this will happen, right?
right. Hey,
And
Laurel.
morning,
Laurel,
Laurel. Yeah, I see. And so oh, the more that we, oh, I just totally lost my train of thought. It was about the expectation thing. The more that we sit in a place of wholeness, we don't need to expect anything. We just know, right? So that just changes
right,
the whole thing. So because when we expect, that means that there is a gap between when we create to when we realize, right?
right, right,
And so we have these expectations, and there's expectations that there needs to be a gap.
right, right.
So, so that's what we
Well,
were
and you
talking about.
said something in the very beginning when you started talking about it. You said that keeps us anchored,
Yeah.
which is
Or that has kept us anchored, yes, into
right, and
time.
and and the belief that it's kept us anchored, which we don't need that anymore. In fact, that's counterproductive to where we're going.
Yeah. So the biggest thing that we really that was that those two. So you and I did a share Friday because of some crazy stuff that was going on Thursday, and then we had the group share Friday night,
Right,
and we talked about this again, and it was just so freeing. Um, because it was almost like I saw this root system holding us like into place, and as soon as we allow ourselves to, I can't even remember what the words were anymore. It was just sort of
I
like,
can't either.
I'm looking. Let me see if I even wrote it down from when we talked last week. I don't think I did.
I did
Oh, wait,
not, and I
wait.
was
Oh, this was a good one. Yeah, I'm glad I wrote this down because this was something for us to talk about. um, so what's happening is this. We are in this place of such change. Now, I could swear that we did another dimensional shift last week. which is why things feel really wiggy to many. So
Right.
it's almost like as we acknowledge that we had that dimensional shift that you and I were talking about a couple weeks ago, I think,
That's right. Yeah.
um, from like 2012 with the super collider thing or whatever. And then what's like once we look back and we say, oh yeah, well that makes a lot of sense and I can accept that. We've now stretched our remembrance, right, to say, okay, I can accept that. Okay, so now I'm going to see this as it happens over and over. And it's like last week we had like some other weird stuff, and it's almost like we're all shifting dimensions all the time right now. I had some weird thing happen, and I was telling everybody about it on the Share Friday night that I called Sarah about Thursday because I was like, I don't know, you have some wiggy stuff going on, but we've had a lot of displacement stuff going on last week, right? There was like things that I know were different suddenly were changed in my reality, which and no evidence to the other version that
Right.
like except my experience of it, and others like having conversations that it's just like it cross wires and all this kind of stuff. But so that's going on. So that was going on. So one of the things that's really important about this expectation thing is when we hold expectations, even the most basic ones, like what Sarah had said last week was, yeah, well, we expect we're going to wake up in the morning and we expect we're going to be human when we wake up and we expect to do this and, or have this and to have a morning and all that kind of stuff. So what's happening is if we really focus at this higher level of resolving expectations, right, to allow all possibility, because for us to allow all possibility is for us to resolve all expectation,
Right.
because if we have expectation, we're limiting ourselves from what we can possibly create and how we can possibly create it. So the thing is, because here's what's happened, because of the dimensional shifts, I'm getting there because I wrote this down so I remember, because of the dimensional shifting and what's going on so much exponentially faster, here's what's happening. And this is what's making everybody is sort of crazy right now. The same actions that we've always done do not produce the same results as they have always provided,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
And that is so key to recognize. So like we're going, okay, well, I've always done it this way. How come I got a different result this time?
Right.
And then we get angry and frustrated and irritated about the whole thing, instead of saying, okay, because I'm not the same anymore, because this isn't the same, this dimension's not the same, this experience isn't the same. And so and that's an expectation, that's a hidden thing that we're not used to looking at in that fine tuning kind of way.
Well, and we've also set it up to be this way so that we do things differently.
Yeah. Yes, and continuously do them differently. Continuously allow ourselves the option of how can I deal with this right in this moment, even if it's different than the last 300 times I've done it,
Right.
right? That pulls out the rug under our feet of comfort in any way whatsoever. It's being comfortable in no consistency, right? And many will call that chaos.
Right. Right.
So So the key is that resolution. And I'll tell you what, those two shares on Friday were so powerful for me that I just flowed right through the weekend. Honestly, it
Mm-hmm.
was so, so nice. And yet I did see a lot of stuff around me. Like my mother was just really angry all weekend for no apparent reason. With me anyway, like snarky and um critical and I was just like, okay, whatever. And the funny thing is, I'm just like, I'm asking, why is it here again? Right? Because it's been better. Then I was just like, you know what? Not my journey. I can just be
Right.
me.
Right.
And I don't even have to react. I don't have to react. I
Or
don't have to be a part of
understand.
it. Yeah. I don't have to understand, right? I can just be happy being me, right? So, but I do know I've seen a lot of posts on social media. I've heard from people in conversations I've had a lot of stuff going on with like what is going on because it has been crazy wacky over the past like couple weeks, you know. So it's
Well,
funny
and
because I,
it's not even really anything you can put your finger on either. It's just a culmination of circumstances that make you go, what was that?
Yep. Yep. And yeah. And I don't even know how to say this, it's like, because we keep on getting faced with how to do things differently. And that's the thing, it's really interesting because it's like, well, what if, like, even simple things like maybe I don't need to do the Sunday dinner every week if I'm going to have to deal with it, deal with
Right.
this kind of.
Well, and what if you woke up in the morning and instead of putting on everything that you expected yesterday when you got up, is you had a whole new set of expectations of today I will really step into my power. Today I will believe I am beyond human limitation. What if and I mean, and those are just how you think about things.
Yeah. Yep. What if I can be completely fluid to everything
Right,
and accept every moment in its perfection?
right, right.
When we
That's
let
just
go
what
of
we do.
expectations, oh yeah, there's the odd. When we let go of expectations, we can fully create and manifest now. Like, and that's what I was shown repeatedly from this particular focus. It's almost like instead of saying, well, I have to do this way. So here's the thing. For example, what I was shown on Friday was, so, okay, you're in the middle of looking to buy a new house, right? So we've been looking at new houses, and it's like, okay, so what are the intrinsic expectations that you have in there? Okay, well, I have to look for a house. I have to have the down payment. It has to be this kind of mortgage payment to be, blah blah blah. These are expectations, right? And then I saw, well, what if you just found the house was there, it was yours, you didn't have to, it was paid for. What if
Right,
you found that? Like, period. I'm like, oh, well, of course. That's like beyond even what I would even expect, right? So,
exactly.
so it's like, well, we don't realize that we limit ourselves because of those little intrinsic expectations of, okay, well, this has to go this way. And like we can look at it in certain ways and then we're still blind to it in a lot of ways.
Well,
And
and
that's,
if you change out that word and put believe or beliefs,
uh-huh.
I mean, because you believe you have to pay the electric bill.
Yeah.
You believe you have to do all these things. You believe you have to put gas in your car. You believe you have to have a car.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many things that we believe, and those beliefs reinforce it being here
And
for
this,
now.
yeah, the whole reality structure, right? And that was the really discomfort, the really big uncomfortable part about talking about this on Friday was the ego was like, oh, wait, no, don't look at this. No, look over here, please. This is very uncomfortable.
Don't look at the man behind the
Yeah,
curtain.
that's right. No, don't look at the man behind the curtain. That's right. Oh gosh, and it was just I couldn't remember when it first came to me. I was like I couldn't even form the words because the ego was like, no. What do you mean, no expectations?
Right,
No beliefs, right? That held the structure of this reality because then it would cease to exist. We would cease to exist in this way, and we would simply move into the next thing, which is what we're doing.
right. Which
And
we're
so,
being forced to anyway.
yeah. And so, are there like a whole bunch of layers of these expectations or beliefs or whatever we want to call a structure? Yes. Can we let go of all of them? We can. We can let go of the ones that we know at a collective level are what is important for us to let go so that we can shift into the next thing. Because here's the thing, if I believe I have to be human in this form all the time, I will never shift into an eagle
Right, exactly.
or a dragon or I don't know, whatever, phoenix or like or anything.
Or just a spiritual being.
Yeah, just yeah. So it's almost like we just have to continue on this. I feel like we have to continue on this vein this week because this is really, really big.
Well, and we can't allow anything new to us to evolve unless we let go of some of this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how can we remember while we're holding on to all these expectations? It's
Yep.
almost like it's an either or situation with that.
Hmm. And we don't realize how many we're holding on to, like that cause us to go a certain way.
Right,
So
right,
now we're talking about going beyond what we thought we were going, to before, what we thought, which is always, ego based. But it's sort of like, okay, the ego says, you can do these and change those, but don't change these.
right, right,
So, and really, when we allow that complete fluidity and allowance, then we allow our infinite empowerment to create, like,
right. And,
in
and
however.
it's the ultimate authenticity
Yeah.
and the ultimate trust.
Because then you don't need anything outside of you. You don't need others to approve of you. You don't need others to love you. You don't need others to do stuff and all that, or to support you. You are
Right?
just that.
All of it.
You're all of it. You're whole. That feels so nice too. Once you get past the fear of the ego of that, it's
Once you get past the screaming.
yeah. Just put in some earplugs. Although that doesn't work because it's inside your head, but the inner earplugs.
Right,
Or the no, 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 not listening to the screen. But yeah, and I was really cognizant and observant to that all weekend. That allowance, the
right,
expectations. And whenever, like, even the tiniest thing oh, well, this is what I do every Saturday, or this is what we do for this, it was like, don't need to do it that way. What if you did different today?
right.
What if you did this? And literally, that's when you just totally are driven from consciousness and not the mind, the chatter of the mind, right? And you
Hmm.
don't even think the chatter of the mind is saying, oh, well, we've got to be here by this time. We've got to do this, like da da da, because of this and because of that. It's just like, well, what if I just was being and totally ran from that, which is really how, oh, isn't that funny what just came to me? So the first little altercation that I had with my mother was when I consciously decided to be that way on Saturday morning. Isn't that funny? And let me tell you what the discussion was, or the so I was my husband and I decided not to go to Kung Fu. We were planning our 25th anniversary vacation in May, and we're looking at all, we're getting all our reservations in or whatever. Since we finally, what, it's March. Oh no, it's April now. So it's like, we're finally getting our crap together because this is when the guidance and everything finally came together. Like, okay, you can do this now. Right. So we're doing it. And I didn't have my phone. Like, I had my phone was put away someplace or whatever, or on the charger. And I went and looked at my phone a little later on, and it was like an hour later, and my mother had called. All right. So I called her back. And right away, I could feel that tone, right? I was like, what's up? And she's like, and this is all she said to me. Did you not ever learn about resting on the weekends? And I was like, what? Like, I had no idea what she was talking about. I was like, what are you talking about? She said, and she repeated it. She goes, didn't you ever learn that, people like work during the week and they rest on the weekends? I'm like, some, not everybody, but but I don't understand where this conversation is going. That's what I said because I had no idea. And she's like, well, I tried calling you before. And see, right away, because I didn't answer because she expected me to answer. And the thing is, I don't always answer my phone anyway because I don't always have my phone on me. I'm not tied to it. So it was so funny because she was like really irritated with me because I wasn't doing
You weren't
what
meeting
she,
her expectations.
yeah, so then she was like, of course, in her head, she's like, well, I figured you didn't answer your phone, so you're probably working and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, first of all, it's Saturday. Secondly, usually we go to Kung Fu Saturday morning, and we didn't today. And thirdly, not that it's really none of your business, but I didn't have my phone, and Scott and I were actually planning our anniversary vacation because we're getting short on time. And it wasn't like, oh, okay, well, all right, cool. Like, it wasn't like, oh, okay, well, but then it was just this like, oh, well, I can't talk about a couple months away. That's a couple months away. And she's like, I can't talk about what's tomorrow. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And like, that was the first thing. It was like, okay, because you didn't do what you're expected to do, right? What I would expect you to do. And I was like, wow, that was so weird. It was such a weird, and I remember hanging up the phone from that conversation thinking, what was that about? Like, I have no idea.
Not about you,
But
clearly.
no, no. So I was just like, but the reflection back to me is, how dare you, right? How dare you do something out of the norm that I can't fit into some kind of, categorization or expectation, right? And that was even with me, like, even changing the norm of our Saturday, which is going to Kung Fu for like several hours because we had other things to do and I had other plans and we were going to some open houses and we wanted to plan the vacation and then then I was going over to a friend's house for dinner. So it was a really full day and of enjoying stuff, stuff I enjoy too. So it was just sort of like weird, like, but it's not the way I would expect it to be for you, you know? And that's a whole expectation thing. And so it's funny that we were just talking about that. I was like, that was where it started. Because I was like saying, you know what, I'm just going to be totally fluid to whatever
Hmm. With no expectation.
with no expectations. So, um, and we don't realize like, we get that way about, we expect people to answer the phone. We expect people to answer the text. Like today, some people get crazy if you don't answer a text within 15 minutes or something, you
Right.
know. And I don't sometimes because I'm just not by my phone. In fact, I
Or
do have
you're
it
in a
here.
session, or you're asleep, or you're
Yeah.
giving someone else your attention.
Yeah. I'm being present where I am, where I'm
Right.
not feeling like I wanted to change my presence to the phone, to the
Right.
person or whatever. So that's all part of these expectation things, these little things that we have in there. Like, do we expect, our spouse to act a certain way with us or our kids, or we expect, us to do certain things together and certain things apart. We expect, so and I keep on getting thrown stuff like that in my life right now, which is like, nope, accept it as it is this way. Well, okay, what if you
Right.
accepted it this way? What if you accepted it this way too? You know?
Right.
And it's like, okay, because if I have irritation or resistance to it, then it's my expectations.
Right. Because you're judging against your expectation against results.
Yes. So I feel like that's where we just go. I think it's important for us to continue on this vein,
Right.
at least for another couple of days, because this is something for us to really, really saturate ourselves in, this consciousness and observance of allowing ourselves to be in wholeness, free of expectations of all kinds.
Hmm.
And that's truly what allowing all possibilities is about.
Right.
What if I was a dog in 2 minutes? And what if I was, a giraffe 5 minutes from now? And, we laugh about that and we say, oh, yeah, but you know what? What do you hear in the back of your mind? Like, yeah, that wouldn't happen
Oh, right. Right.
though.
Yep.
But what if it did? I mean, it was funny because we were talking briefly before we got on too about the OA, right? Because the OA, which is a series on Netflix, and the second season came out just recently. And so, did you watch the whole thing,
Of
the whole
course.
second season yet? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, see, luckily I didn't start till late last night, so we only did one episode, and I was like, I'm pacing myself. But um, anyway, so the first episode of it though was really good about, like, if you watch the first season, there's spoilers here. It's all about this whole, like, the doorways, opening doorways into other dimensions, essentially.
Right.
And she essentially, it opens this season that she essentially accomplishes that.
Right.
um, and so But the funny thing is, it's not the quite the way she expected it in the way she expected it.
Right,
So that's
right.
pretty apparent right away.
And her expectations kept her limited.
Yeah. So, and I'm sure the rest of the season is about her trying, like, letting go of those limitations so that she can manipulate through it or whatever. So that's the thing for us is we are hitting new ground in this new like dimensional shifting, right? So as we've recognized, we did that major dimensional shift back in the 2012 thing, and then some, I think, right? Because we've been saying it felt like we were about to. It feels like we did something last week, and if we're in the middle of it or whatever, the thing is for us to accept all possibility because if we hold the expectations of the old dimension, of the old way of living, that's what we've been doing consciously for the last several weeks, even from what we just discovered from 7 years ago, is
Hmm.
all the stuff that we've like held on to, like armor that was important for us to shed so that we could embrace where we are now,
Right,
right?
right.
And so the key is for us to get into the habit of allowing that constant release and shifting and presence.
Hmm.
Release and shifting and presence. What was good for us 10 minutes ago is not good for us necessarily right now. It could be,
Right.
right? So if we're
Well,
guided
and
to do some,
all of that shedding and releasing and everything gives us access to full body remembering, which then allows us to perpetuate that cycle of remembering and shifting and shedding and
yeah,
evolving and yeah,
yeah, yeah. And allowing ourselves the possibility of all possibility, right? Allowing ourselves to remember to a level that's beyond the capacity of our brain to filter, right? To be able to just remember and know and exist from there without having the filtration of the brain and translation.
right. It's like full body knowing instead of mind knowing.
Yes, which was the other thing we were talking about on Friday,
Right.
right? Is getting out of the
It
mind
focuses.
knowing or even out of just the heart knowing. It's the whole being knowing. Yeah.
Yep. There was your confirmation.
Yep. Because I thought I had turned my sound off. Apparently I did not.
Right.
So I'm going to do that right now. Nope, it says it's off. Oh, no, it's the ringtone part. Okay, there we go. So, all of that. Let's go and do
Yeah.
all of that. More of that.
Right.
And having conscious clarity and understanding in this new way of full being, knowing, and remembering so that we don't have to,
And trusting.
and trusting, right? So we don't take that extra step of having translating.
Right.
Wow, that really, like, that makes the ego go crazy too in the background. Like, what do you mean no translating?
Right.
I mean, we talked about that. We talked about that in the Trinity practice about the no translating, but this is no translating at a completely different level. It's like, no, I was comfortable with that no translating, not about this one.
Right.
So, and allowing that and being comfortable with that. So let's do all that. You ready? Let's go do.
I'm ready.
It just gets better and better every time we
Uh,
do that. Oh, that was lovely. I'm still seeing. I keep on seeing like circuits just sort of like melting away,
oh yeah,
you know. And that
yeah.
would make sense because if you think of a circuit board, right, it directs the flow of energy or whatever.
Uh-huh. It's funny. I keep coming up with Star Trek references and like the Borg, and it's like you know they have them costumed as scary and dark, and they inject you with things to make you different than you really are. And what if it were there were these amazing beams of light, and all they had to do was touch you, and you knew everything, and you didn't need this, and there was no more
See, and that's what I was
needing
seeing.
this. Right, right. And it's like, okay, that's what I want. And it's like
Yeah.
you're not losing anything, which is, oh, you lose your individuality, it's funny because I just kept seeing that over and over, and it was going, actually, that's what I want that's what I feel my purpose here. And then
Yeah.
I got into the whole thing of, Jesus touching just by healing. And it's like, all he did was remind you with the touch of what you already knew how to do.
Yes. Well, which is essentially what it's all about, what we do anyway, right? So,
Exactly. So
but
it
yet
was,
that's what I was seeing too. Like, yet we didn't have to use any of the words. We didn't have to use any incantations or, tools or anything. It
or
was literally,
symbols or,
it was literally like reaching out energy to energy, right? And it was like I could see like sitting with somebody and it would be like, okay, you haven't opened, like you just haven't opened this yet, and I just help them open that, and like I'm not even saying any words, like
right,
literally, like it's just an understood, like yeah, and it just opens the flow so that they get it all, right?
right, right.
And it's just so easy.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
then we could go float on our merry way.
Right, right.
So awesome. That was awesome. Yeah, so this is the third time you and I have come in to do and done this. So I will recommend to anybody who's watching or listening to do this multiple times because it's
Right.
stepping into things that we have so many layers of shifting free of.
Hmm.
Because every time it's a little slightly different for me because there's another piece of like, oh yeah, this whole translation thing that was really important. That felt really important.
Right.
And then we feel like no onus. There's no onus of like that I have to translate it in a way you understand it. There's
Yeah.
no way, no need. It's simply energy to energy, me to me.
Right.
Reminding my pinky like what my thumb does, already remembers that kind of thing. Yeah, nice.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Oh well, that'll be lovely for today.
Yeah. Right way to start the week and the month.
Yep, short and to the point, and this is really powerful stuff. So we're moving along. So everybody stay centered, and thanks for joining us. We'll report back, I'm sure. And we'll see you next time. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Evan.
signing off with this week's Ascended World podcast. Have a good one.